Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Haven's command center and looked out at his small colony. The sun was setting over the dusty plains, painting the sky orange and red. Below him, 847 people went about their evening routines. Children played in the streets while their parents finished work for the day. It looked peaceful, but Jake knew the truth. New Haven was the weakest human colony in known space. The colony had been built 15 years ago on this distant planet, called Kepler 442c. Earth had sent them here with big dreams and small supplies. They were supposed to mine rare metals and grow food for other colonies. Instead, they struggled just to survive each day. Their equipment was old and broken. Their buildings needed constant repairs. Supply ships from Earth came only twice a year, and sometimes they forgot to come at all. Jake walked down the metal stairs to the main floor. His boots made loud clanking sounds on each step. Lisa Carter, his security chief, was waiting for him at the bottom. She held a datapad in her hands and looked worried. "What's the problem now?" Jake asked. There was always a problem in New Haven. "The water recycler broke again," Lisa said. "Pete Collins is trying to fix it, but we need new parts, real new parts, not more of his creative solutions." Jake rubbed his forehead. Pete was their best engineer, but even he could not work miracles with scrap metal and hope. "How long can we last with the backup system?" "Maybe 2 weeks if we're careful with water usage." "Great. Add it to the list." Jake took the datapad and looked at their problems. Broken air filters, failing power generators, cracked dome seals, food supplies running low, medical equipment that belonged in a museum. The list went on and on. They walked through the colony's main street. New Haven was built inside a large dome to protect against the planet's harsh weather. The dome was made of clear aluminum, but years of dust storms had made it cloudy. Street lights flickered because the power grid was unstable. Some buildings had tape over cracks in their walls. "Sometimes I wonder what Earth Command was thinking when they sent us out here," Lisa said. Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. They were thinking about the mineral surveys that showed this planet had valuable resources. They forgot to mention the part about deadly storms, extreme temperatures, and soil that kills most Earth plants. They stopped at Dr. Alex Bennett's research lab. Through the window, they could see him and his assistant Maria Rodriguez working late again. Dr. Bennett was studying the strange crystals they found all over the planet. The crystals were pretty to look at, but so far they seemed useless. Maria was always excited about energy readings from the crystals, but their old equipment could barely detect anything useful. "At least someone around here still has hope," Lisa said. "Hope doesn't fix water recyclers," Jake replied. They continued their evening walk through the colony. This was Jake's daily routine. He checked on everyone and everything, making sure New Haven would survive another night. It was not glamorous work, but someone had to do it. In the farming section, Carl Johnson was closing up the greenhouse domes for the night. Carl had been a farmer on Earth before joining the colony. He worked harder than anyone to grow food in the planet's difficult conditions. Most of their crops failed, but Carl never gave up trying. "How are the tomatoes coming along?" Jake asked. Carl wiped sweat from his face. "Better than last month. We might actually have enough for everyone this time. The new fertilizer mix seems to be working. That's good news for once. Don't celebrate yet. The weather satellite is predicting another dust storm next week. If it's bad, we could lose everything. Again." Jake nodded. Dust storms on Kepler 442c were terrible. The wind could reach 200 miles per hour and last for days. During the worst storms, they had to shut down all outside equipment and hide in the underground shelters. They visited the medical center next. Nurse Helen Brooks was checking supplies and making notes. The medical center had basic equipment for treating injuries and common sickness, but nothing for serious problems. If someone had a heart attack or needed surgery, they would probably die. The nearest real hospital was 6 months away by spaceship. "How are we doing on medical supplies?" Lisa asked. "We have enough bandages and basic medicine for maybe 3 months, Helen said. "But we're almost out of antibiotics. If someone gets a serious infection..." She did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened to people who got sick in New Haven. Their last stop was the school. Amy Foster, was cleaning up after the day's classes. New Haven had 127 children, and Amy taught all of them in one big room. She used old textbooks and broken computers, but somehow she kept the kids learning. "How are our future leaders doing?" Jake asked. Amy smiled. It was the first real smile Jake had seen all day. "They're amazing." Today, little Bobby Chen asked me why we came to this planet if it's so dangerous. I told him that sometimes people have to do dangerous things to make life better for everyone else. What did he say to that? He said when he grows up he wants to be an engineer like Pete so he can fix everything that's broken. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. Maybe there was hope after all. As they walked back to the command center, the colony's warning system suddenly came to life. Red lights flashed and alarms rang throughout New Haven. Jake and Lisa ran toward the communications room. Pete Collins was already there, working at the long-range sensor console. His face was pale. "What is it?" Jake asked. Pete looked up from his screen. "We've got ships coming toward us, big ones. They'll be here in 3 days. "Supply ships from Earth?" "No." Pete's voice was quiet. "These are alien ships, lots of them. And Jake, they're armed." Lisa grabbed the sensor data and studied it. Her hands started shaking. "These are Zephyrian ships. I recognize the signatures from the military briefings." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Everyone in human space knew about the Zephyrians. They were a warlike alien race that conquered planets and enslaved or killed everyone they found. They had destroyed dozens of colonies already. "How many ships?" Jake asked. 12, Pete said. "All of them bigger than anything we've ever seen." Jake looked around the command center. The walls were cracked. The computers were old. Their weapons consisted of a few mining lasers and some old rifles. They had no military ships, no trained soldiers, and no way to call for help. The strongest military base in human space was 6 months away. Earth Command could not send help, even if they wanted to. New Haven was alone. "What do we do?" Lisa asked. Jake stood up straight and looked at his people. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and doctors. They were not soldiers. But they were human, and they were not going to give up without a fight. "We get ready," he said. "We have 3 days to figure out how to survive this, so let's get to work." The emergency meeting took place in the colony's main hall at dawn. Jake Morrison stood before all 847 colonists of New Haven. Men, women, and children filled every chair and stood along the walls. Their faces showed fear, confusion, and anger. Some people were crying. Others looked ready to fight even though they had nothing to fight with. Jake cleared his throat and began to speak. "By now you all know what's coming. 12 Zephyrian warships will reach our planet in 2.5 days. We have no military support, no escape ships, and no way to call for help." A woman in the back shouted, "So what do we do? Just wait here. To die? We have 2 choices," Jake said. "We can surrender and hope they make us slaves instead of killing us, or we can fight with everything we have." Carl Johnson stood up from his seat. The big farmer's hands were clenched into fists. "I didn't come out here to the edge of space just to bow down to some alien monsters. If they want New Haven, they're going to have to take it from us." Many people nodded and voiced agreement. Others looked scared. Amy Foster raised her hand. "What about the children? How can we protect them if we fight?" "We'll move all the kids to the underground storage tunnels," Jake said. "Helen Brooks will stay with them along with some other adults. The tunnels are deep and well hidden. Even if the worst happens up here, the children will be safe." Dr. Alex Bennett stepped forward. He was holding a small crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. "I might have something that could help us. These crystals I've been studying, they do something strange when they're exposed to certain radio frequencies. They seem to absorb energy and then release it in different ways." Maria Rodriguez, his assistant, joined him. "We've been running tests all night. When we hit the crystals with electromagnetic pulses, they create interference patterns. It might affect alien technology." Lisa Carter shook her head. "That's a big might, Doc. We can't bet everyone's lives on crystal magic." "It's not magic," Dr. Bennett said. "It's science we don't fully understand yet, but it's all we've got." Pete Collins raised his hand. "What about weapons? We need to figure out how to fight them. Jake nodded. Pete, I want you and Susan Gray to work together. Take every piece of equipment we have and turn it into something that can hurt the aliens. Mining lasers, construction tools, whatever you can think of. Susan Gray was their head mechanic. She knew every machine in the colony and could fix anything with spare parts and determination. The mining lasers pack a good punch, but they're not designed for combat. I'll need to modify the power systems and add targeting computers. Tadiwan, what you can, Jake said. Carl, I want you to organize our people into groups. Anyone who can shoot gets a weapon. Everyone else gets support duties, medical, communications, supply running. Carl nodded. I can do that. We've got some good hunters in the colony. They might not be soldiers, but they know how to hit what they aim at. An older man named Frank Davis stood up. I was in the Earth military 20 years ago. Infantry. I can help train people to fight as a team instead of just individuals. Good, Jake said. Work with Carl. We need every advantage we can get. For the next several hours, New Haven transformed from a quiet farming colony into a frantic military base. Pete and Susan worked in the main workshop surrounded by sparks and the smell of burning metal. They were taking apart mining equipment and rebuilding it into weapons. The colony's 3 large mining lasers were their most powerful tools. Each one could cut through solid rock like butter. Susan figured out how to mount them on rotating platforms so they could be aimed at targets. Pete worked on increasing their power output and adding cooling systems so they could fire repeatedly, without overheating. This one's ready for testing, Susan said, wiping grease from her hands. They had turned a mining laser into something that looked like a military gun turret. They set up a test target made of metal sheets and concrete blocks. When Susan fired the modified laser, it cut through everything like it was made of paper. The beam was so hot it melted the metal and turned the concrete into glass. That'll definitely hurt aliens, Pete said with a grin. Meanwhile, Carl and Frank were teaching colonists how to fight. Most of the people had never held a real weapon before. They had hunting rifles, construction tools, and improvised weapons made from farming equipment. Remember, you don't have to be a hero, Frank told a group of nervous farmers. Just point your rifle at the aliens and pull the trigger. Stay behind cover. Work as a team. Help each other. Dr. Bennett and Maria were setting up their crystal experiments around the colony. They placed the strange blue crystals at key locations and connected them with cables and radio transmitters. They did not fully understand how the crystals worked, but their tests showed they could create strong electromagnetic interference. If we can disrupt their electronics, it might level the playing field, Dr. Bennett explained to Jake. Their weapons and armor probably depend on advanced technology. Without that technology, they're just big, tough aliens. And we're just small, weak humans, Jake replied. But we're humans who refuse to give up. Amy Foster and Helen Brooks were preparing the underground tunnels for the children. The tunnels had been dug years ago as emergency shelters during dust storms. Now they would protect the colony's future from alien invaders. We have enough food and water for 2 weeks, Helen said. The air recycling system works independently from the main colony. If something happens up there, we can wait for rescue. Amy was trying to keep the children calm and distracted. She told them stories and played games, but everyone could hear the sounds of preparation above. Hammering, drilling, shouting orders, and the whine of power tools working overtime. Little Bobby Chen, the boy who wanted to be an engineer, asked Amy, "Are the aliens really coming to hurt us?" Amy hugged him gently. "Some bad people are coming, yes, but all the adults are working very hard to keep you safe. That's what grown-ups do. We protect the children no matter what." As the second day passed, the colony's defenses took shape. Susan and Pete had converted all 3 mining lasers into weapon turrets. They had also rigged explosive charges using materials from their excavation supplies. The charges were not sophisticated, but they were powerful enough to damage alien vehicles or equipment. Carl's militia groups were practicing with their weapons and learning basic military tactics from Frank. They set up defensive positions around the colony using sandbags, metal sheets, and overturned vehicles. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. Dr. Bennett's crystal network was ready for testing. He had placed crystals at 12 locations around New Haven and connected them to a central control system. When activated, the crystals would create a field of electromagnetic interference that might affect alien technology. On the evening of the second day, Jake stood again on the observation deck. The colony looked different now. Weapon turrets pointed toward the sky. Defensive barriers surrounded important buildings. People moved with purpose, carrying weapons and supplies. New Haven was still the weakest human colony in space, but it was no longer defenseless. Lisa Carter joined him on the deck. "Think we have a chance?" Jake watched his people preparing for war. Farmers who had become soldiers, engineers who had become weapon makers, teachers who had become protectors. Against 12 alien warships with advanced technology and trained soldiers, probably not. "Then why are we doing this?" Jake smiled. "Because we're human. We don't know how to quit. And sometimes when the impossible happens, humans find a way to make it possible." The long-range sensors showed the alien fleet getting closer. In 18 hours, they would arrive at New Haven. The colonists worked through the night, making final preparations for a battle they could not win but would not avoid. Tomorrow would decide whether New Haven survived or became another lost colony in the history books. But tonight, 847 humans refused to surrender without a fight. The alien ships arrived at dawn on the third day. Jake Morrison watched from the command center as 12 massive vessels appeared in the sky above New Haven. Each ship was at least 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed red along their sides. The ships arranged themselves in a perfect circle around the planet. They moved with precision that showed advanced technology and military training. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized how outmatched his colony truly was. Lisa Carter stood beside him, staring at the sensor readings. "Each of those ships has enough firepower to destroy our entire colony in minutes," she said quietly. "Then why haven't they done it yet?" Jake asked. Before Lisa could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A deep, harsh voice spoke in perfect English, though the accent was strange and threatening. "Humans of the colony called New Haven. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your planet now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately and prepare for processing." Jake picked up the communications microphone. His hand was shaking, slightly, but his voice was steady. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of New Haven Colony. We refuse to surrender. This is our home, and we will defend it." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice spoke again, and this time it sounded amused. "Commander Morrison, you have 847 humans with primitive weapons against our fleet of 12 warships and 3,000 trained soldiers. Surrender now, and you will become slaves. Refuse, and you will all die." "We choose to fight," Jake said. The alien laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "Very well. We will demonstrate what happens to those who defy the hegemony." One of the alien ships moved closer to the planet. A bright beam of energy shot down from its hull and struck a storage building on the edge of New Haven. The building exploded in a ball of fire and smoke. When the flames cleared, nothing remained but a crater in the ground. The communications system crackled again. "That was a warning shot. The next one will target your main settlement. You have 1 hour to surrender." Jake turned off the communications system and looked around the command center. Pete Collins was working frantically at the sensor controls. Susan Gray was checking the weapon systems. Dr. Bennett was adjusting his crystal network. Everyone was trying to stay calm, but Jake could see the fear in their eyes. "What do we do now?" Lisa asked. Jake thought for a moment. He remembered reading about ancient Earth cultures and their codes of honor. Many alien species had similar traditions. It was a desperate idea, but desperate times called for desperate measures. He turned the communications back on. "Admiral Kethvar, I invoke the right of single combat." There was another long pause. "Explain this right you claim, human." Many warrior cultures recognize the right of a leader to challenge an enemy to single combat before a larger battle. "If your champion defeats me, we surrender. If I defeat your champion, you fight us fairly on the ground without using your ships." The alien was quiet for several minutes. Jake could hear other voices speaking in the background, but he could not understand their language. Finally, Admiral Kethvar spoke again. "This is interesting. Your species shows more honor than we expected. Very well. I will send General Thargon to face you in combat. If he defeats you, your people surrender. If you somehow defeat him, we will fight you on equal terms without orbital bombardment." "Agreed," Jake said. Lisa grabbed his arm. "Jake, what are you doing? You can't fight an alien warrior." "I'm buying us time and a chance," Jake replied. "If they use their ships to attack us, we're all dead in minutes. If they have to fight us on the ground, we might have a chance." 30 minutes later, a small alien shuttle landed in the center of New Haven. The shuttle was sleek and black with weapons mounted on its sides. A ramp lowered, and General Thargon stepped out. The alien was huge, nearly 8 feet tall. His body was covered in natural armor that looked like insect shells. He had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but his eyes glowed red through the visor. Jake walked out to meet him in the colony's main square. He was wearing simple clothes and carrying no weapons. The alien carried a sword that crackled with energy. "You are the human leader?" General Thargon asked. His voice was deep and rumbling. "I am," Jake said. "You are small and weak. This will be quick." The alien raised his energy sword and attacked. Jake tried to dodge, but Thargon was faster than he looked. The sword caught Jake across the chest, cutting through his shirt and leaving a burning line on his skin. Jake rolled away and picked up a metal pipe from the ground. It was not much of a weapon against an energy sword, but it was all he had. He swung the pipe at the alien's head, but Thargon caught it with one of his 4 hands and crushed it like paper. The alien's next attack knocked Jake to the ground. He rolled desperately as the energy sword stabbed down, missing him by inches. The blade cut through the concrete like butter. Jake was losing badly. He was smaller, weaker, and had no real weapons. But he kept fighting. Every time Thargon knocked him down, Jake got back up. Every time the alien wounded him, Jake found the strength to keep moving. The colonists watched from windows and doorways. They saw their leader getting beaten by a creature that was stronger and faster in every way. But they also saw something else. Jake Morrison refused to give up. Even when defeat was certain, he kept fighting for his people. Finally, General Thargon had Jake pinned to the ground with his foot. The energy sword was pointed at Jake's throat. "You have fought well for such a weak creature," the alien said. "But this is over." Jake looked up at his enemy. Blood was running down his face and his body was covered in cuts and burns. "Maybe," he said, "but I didn't fight to win. I fought to show you something." "Show me what?" "That humans don't surrender. Ever. Even when we know we're going to lose." General Thargon stared down at him for a long moment. Then he pulled back his sword and stepped away. "You have shown courage, human. You have earned an honorable defeat." He spoke into a communication device attached to his armor. "Admiral Kethvar, the human leader has been defeated, but showed great bravery. I recommend we honor our agreement and fight them on the ground without orbital support." The alien's voice came through the device. "Are you certain, General? We could end this quickly from orbit. These humans have proven they deserve an honorable battle. It will be educational to see how they fight when cornered." Jake struggled to his feet. His body hurt everywhere, but he was alive. More importantly, he had succeeded in his real goal. The aliens would fight on the ground, where New Haven's defenders might have a small chance. "Thank you," Jake said to General Thargon. The alien tilted his head. "Do not thank me yet, human. My soldiers are trained killers with advanced weapons and armor. Your people are farmers and workers with primitive tools. The outcome is still certain." "Maybe," Jake said, again, "but now we have a chance to show you what humans can really do." General Thargon returned to his shuttle. As it lifted off, Jake saw more shuttles approaching from the alien fleet. Soon the sky was full of them, carrying soldiers and equipment down to the planet's surface. Jake limped back to the command center where Lisa was waiting with medical supplies. "How many soldiers are they landing?" he asked. 3,000, she said while bandaging his wounds. All of them armed with plasma weapons and wearing powered armor. Jake nodded. Then we better make sure our people are ready. The real battle is about to begin. Through the windows of the command center, they could see alien soldiers forming up in the distance. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. In a few hours, they would march on New Haven. But the colonists were ready too. Their improvised weapons were loaded and their defenses were in place. Most importantly, they had something the aliens did not expect: the determination of humans, who refused to quit. The battle for New Haven was about to begin. The Zephyrian ground forces began their march on New Haven 3 hours after landing. General Thargon led 3,000 soldiers across the dusty plains toward the human colony. Their black armor gleamed in the afternoon sun, and their plasma rifles hummed with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation like a machine built for war. From the observation deck, Jake Morrison watched the alien army approach. His body still hurt from the fight with General Thargon, but his mind was focused on the battle ahead. Lisa Carter stood beside him, looking through binoculars at the enemy force. "They're staying in tight formation," she said. "Very disciplined, very professional." "Good," Jake replied. Professional soldiers follow rules and procedures. When the rules stop working, they get confused. In the research lab, Dr. Alex Bennett was making final adjustments to his crystal network. Maria Rodriguez worked beside him, her fingers dancing over the control systems. They had spent the last hour testing the crystals and preparing for what they hoped would be their secret weapon. "Are you sure this will work?" Maria asked. "I'm not sure of anything," Dr. Bennett admitted, "but the energy readings are stronger than ever. When I activate the network, it should create electromagnetic interference across the entire area around the colony, and if it doesn't work, then we find out how good our other defenses are." Pete Collins and Susan Gray were in the workshop, making last-minute changes to their weapon systems. The 3 mining laser turrets were ready, along with dozens of smaller weapons and explosive devices. Everything was connected to the crystal power network that Dr. Bennett had designed. "The power levels look good," Susan said, checking her instruments. "If the doc's crystals work like he thinks they will, we should be able to overload the alien equipment." "And if they don't work?" Pete asked. "Then we shoot at them with mining lasers and hope for the best." Carl Johnson was with his militia groups, spread out around the colony in hidden positions. Frank Davis had taught them basic military tactics, but most of them were still farmers and workers with hunting rifles. They were scared but determined to protect their home. "Remember what we practiced," Carl told his people through the radio. "Stay hidden until they get close. Aim for the gaps in their armor. Work in teams and help each other." Young Bobby Chen's father, who was part of Carl's group, checked his rifle nervously. "What if our bullets can't get through their armor?" "Then, we keep shooting until they can," Carl replied. "And we trust that our engineers have something special planned for us." The alien army was now only a mile away from New Haven. General Thargon could see the human colony's defenses through his helmet's targeting system: sandbags and metal barriers, primitive weapon positions. It looked pathetic compared to the military bases his forces had conquered on other worlds. "Begin the assault," he commanded his officers. "Standard formation, plasma weapons at full power. This should be over in minutes." The Zephyrian soldiers raised their weapons and prepared to fire. Their plasma rifles could punch through most armor and melt solid metal. Against human defenders with basic equipment, they would be devastating. But as the aliens moved within range of the colony, Dr. Bennett activated his crystal network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every crystal around New Haven began to glow with bright blue light. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Electromagnetic waves pulsed outward in all directions, washing over the approaching alien army. The first sign of trouble came when the aliens' plasma rifles started sparking and smoking. The sophisticated electronics that controlled the weapons were being disrupted by the crystal field. Soldiers pulled their triggers, but nothing happened. Their weapons were dead. "What is happening?" General Thargon shouted into his communication device. But the device was not working either. The crystal field was interfering with all electronic systems. The aliens' powered armor began to malfunction next. Servo motors that helped them move quickly stopped working. Targeting systems went dark. Life support systems flickered on and off. The soldiers found themselves carrying heavy metal suits that no longer helped them fight. In the colony's command center, Jake watched the confusion spreading through the alien ranks. "Now!" he shouted into his radio. Susan Gray activated the mining laser turrets. The three massive weapons, now powered by crystal energy, fired beams of incredible intensity at the alien formation. The beams cut through the Zephyrian ranks like a hot knife through butter. Aliens in their malfunctioning armor could not move fast enough to dodge. The first laser beam struck a group of 50 soldiers, vaporizing them instantly. The second beam carved a line through the alien formation, destroying equipment and creating panic. The third beam targeted General Thargon himself, but the alien commander rolled behind a boulder just in time. Carl Johnson's militia opened fire from their hidden positions. Their simple hunting rifles and improvised weapons were suddenly much more effective against aliens, whose armor was no longer working properly. Bullets that would have bounced off powered armor now found gaps and weak points. Maria Rodriguez was controlling the crystal field from her position in the research lab. She could adjust the frequency and intensity of the electromagnetic interference, creating targeted disruptions in different areas of the battlefield. When she saw a group of aliens trying to reorganize, she focused the crystal energy on them, causing their equipment to fail completely. "Their communication systems are down," she reported to Jake. "They can't coordinate their attacks." Pete Collins had rigged explosive devices around the colony's perimeter. When the confused aliens tried to take cover behind rocks and barriers, he detonated the charges remotely. The explosions sent aliens flying and created even more chaos in their ranks. Susan Gray piloted one of the colony's mining mechs, a large machine normally used for excavating ore deposits. She had modified it with armor plating and crystal-powered weapons. The mech stomped through a group of aliens, its massive arms swinging industrial hammers that crushed armor and bone. "This is impossible," General Thargon shouted to his officers, but half of them were already dead, and the others could not hear him through their malfunctioning communication systems. The aliens had trained for battles against other military forces with similar technology. They knew how to fight enemies, with plasma weapons, energy shields, and advanced tactics. But they had never faced an enemy that could turn their own technology against them. The human defenders fought with desperate creativity. When their bullets ran out, they threw rocks enhanced with crystal energy that exploded on impact. When their positions were overrun, they retreated through tunnels and attacked from new directions. They used their knowledge of the local terrain to set traps and ambushes. Dr. Bennett realized he could do more than just disrupt alien technology. He began using the crystal network to enhance human equipment. Hunting rifles fired with twice their normal power. Communication radios worked perfectly despite the electromagnetic interference. Even simple tools became more effective when charged with crystal energy. Frank Davis led a group of colonists in a flanking attack against the alien right flank. His old military training helped him spot weaknesses in the enemy formation. When the aliens tried to regroup, Frank's people hit them from the side with crystal-enhanced weapons. General Thargon found himself commanding an army that was falling apart. His soldiers were scattered, their equipment was failing, and the humans were fighting like demons. For the first time in his military career, he was losing a battle against a supposedly inferior enemy. A mining laser beam barely missed his head, melting the rock he was hiding behind. Thargon looked around desperately for a way to salvage the situation. His army of 3,000 had been reduced to less than 1,000 effective soldiers in just 30 minutes of fighting. The humans had turned their greatest weakness, primitive technology, into their greatest strength. While the aliens depended on advanced systems that could be disrupted, the humans used simple tools that worked no matter what. Jake Morrison watched the battle from the command center, hardly believing what he was seeing. His people were not just surviving, they were winning. The weakest human colony in space was defeating one of the galaxy's most feared military forces, but the battle was not over yet. General Thargon knew his army was beaten. Less than 800 of his 3,000 soldiers were still alive, and most of them were wounded or trapped without working equipment. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned a hopeless battle into a complete victory. The alien commander crawled from his hiding place behind a melted boulder. His armor was cracked and smoking. His weapons were dead. Around him, the battlefield was littered with the bodies of his soldiers and the wreckage of their equipment. Jake Morrison appeared at the edge of the colony's defensive line. He was carrying a simple hunting rifle, but it glowed with blue crystal energy. Behind him came other colonists, farmers, engineers, teachers, and mechanics who had just defeated one of the galaxy's most feared armies. "General Thargon," Jake called out, "do you surrender?" The alien looked at the human who had challenged him to single combat just hours earlier. This small, weak creature had somehow orchestrated the destruction of his entire invasion force. "How?" was all he could say. "We adapted," Jake replied. "You came here with fancy weapons and advanced technology. We used our brains and refused to give up." Pete Collins emerged from his position near the mining laser turrets. "Your mistake was thinking that better technology always wins. Sometimes the side that wants it more finds a way to make the impossible happen." General Thargon slowly raised his hands in surrender. "I yield. My remaining soldiers yield. We are defeated." High above the planet, Admiral Kethvar watched the battle's end through his ship's sensors. His entire ground force had been destroyed by humans using primitive weapons and strange energy fields. It was the most humiliating defeat in Zephyrian military history. He activated his communication system and sent a message to his fleet. "All ships, prepare for orbital bombardment. We will destroy the colony from space." But when he tried to fire his weapons, nothing happened. Dr. Bennett had expanded his crystal network during the battle, and now the electromagnetic interference reached high into the atmosphere. The alien ship's weapon systems were failing just like their ground forces. Equipment had failed. "Admiral," one of his officers reported, "our main power systems are shutting down. Life support is failing. We need to evacuate to the emergency pods." Admiral Kethvar stared at the small human colony on the planet below. These people had not just defeated his army, they had crippled his entire fleet. "Send a message to the human colony," he ordered. "Tell them we surrender completely." In New Haven's command center, Jake received the alien fleet's surrender. All 12 warships were powerless and drifting in space. Their crews were abandoning ship and escape pods, hoping the humans would rescue them. Lisa Carter looked at the sensor readings in amazement. "Jake, do you realize what we just did? We destroyed an entire Zephyrian invasion fleet. No one has ever done that before." Dr. Bennett and Maria Rodriguez were already working on their next project. They had learned so much about the crystals during the battle that they could now create portable versions of their electromagnetic disruption technology. "This could change everything," Dr. Bennett said. "If we can make these crystal devices smaller and more portable, human colonies everywhere could defend themselves against alien attacks." Carl Johnson was helping tend to the wounded. New Haven had lost 37 people during the battle, but they had saved their colony and discovered something that could protect all of humanity. "What happens now?" Susan Gray asked. Jake looked out at his colony. The buildings were damaged, and there was work to be done, but his people were alive and free. "Now we rebuild. We study these crystals and figure out how to help other human colonies, and we send a message to Earth telling them what happened here." 3 days later, Jake sent his report to Earth Command. The message would take months to reach them, but when it did, it would change how humanity saw itself in the galaxy. The report was simple. New Haven Colony successfully repelled Zephyrian invasion fleet using locally developed crystal technology. No alien vessels escaped. Colony intact and ready to share defensive technology with other human settlements. Recommend immediate research into crystal applications for military use. Within a year, news of New Haven's victory had spread throughout the galaxy. The weakest human colony in space had accomplished what major military powers thought impossible. Other alien species began to look at humanity with new respect and caution. The Zephyrian hegemony never recovered from the loss of their invasion fleet. Other alien empires realized that humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that refuses to surrender. New Haven became a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. The colony grew from 847 desperate survivors to a thriving city of over 50,000 people. Scientists came from across human space to study the crystals and develop new technologies. Jake Morrison remained as the colony's leader, but he was also appointed as humanity's first ambassador of colonial defense. His job was to help other human settlements prepare for alien attacks using the lessons learned at New Haven. Bobby Chen grew up to become an engineer just like he had promised. He worked with Dr. Bennett to create portable crystal devices that could be used by any human colony to defend against alien invasion. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of hostile alien empires that wanted to conquer or destroy humanity. But after the Battle of New Haven, they all knew one thing for certain. Humans would never be easy prey. When cornered, when outnumbered, when facing impossible odds, humans would find a way to fight back, and sometimes they would win.